Alright everybody, thanks for tuning in. This should be a pretty quick and straightforward video. We're going to be replacing the front drive shaft on a 2004 Dodge Ram. After some driving, I noticed a kind of a metal sound clanking in the front end of the truck, and then after some investigation underneath of the truck, I decided that it was the front drive shaft that was giving me issues. Now these can be repaired with just replacing the U-joint parts, but for this case I went ahead and bought an entirely new remanufactured unit. So I'll be taking the whole thing out and replacing it with an entirely new front drive shaft. And because I'll be replacing it with an entire unit, I don't have to put any markings on it to make sure that it goes back in the correct and balanced position. The whole unit itself should come pre-balanced, so we shouldn't have any issues there. This is going to be a surprisingly easy fix to do. It's 4 bolts on the front of it, and then it just slips on some splines out of the transfer case. But yeah, the whole job shouldn't take more than 30 minutes, even running around grabbing the tools that you might need. So let's get into it.
I have one of the bolts taken out already. You can see here, this one had a little bit of maybe blue Loctite on it, but they weren't in there very tight, so it shouldn't really be much of an issue. This is a 15 millimeter socket, and it fits tightly in there. I tried a 5/8, but I felt like it wiggled a little bit more, so I went with this 15 mil here. Not a ton of room to spare, but I'm going to use this creeper to get under the truck. I do have the larger 20-inch wheels here, so maybe that gives me a little bit more clearance. But the truck's not jacked up or anything, and I can fit as a skinny dude on this creeper under the truck. So here we have where the front drive shaft is connecting to the front differential. It shouldn't be a mystery of where to find it. It's basically directly in between the 2 wheels. You can see here we have 2 of the bottom bolts shown. They should be easily reached, and then just above it there's 2 more. Easily enough I can get a socket onto the top ones, kind of just dodging pieces of the truck around it. And like I said, they weren't on too tight. It's basically these 4 bolts holding the drive shaft in on the front. Following the drive shaft back, you can see where it goes onto the splines, onto the transfer case. I have the boot pushed back already just because I wanted to show how everything's in there. But normally your boot would go up. You can see, I guess, where the rust is on the old drive shaft that was exposed to the elements. So what we'll have to do back here, obviously I was able to get the drive shaft off with the boot still on, but it took a lot of force, so I would probably recommend cutting these clamps off. There's one on the front that's going to be around the drive shaft, and then this one on the back here, I guess that keeps the boot on the rest of the splines. So one thing to note with this, the exhaust is right above the drive shaft, so if you were driving your truck before this, just be cautious that it might be a little toasty. I had all the bolts loose, so I'm going to go ahead and remove those. And now you can see I have all 4 bolts out, so there's really nothing holding it onto the front. There is a little bit of a lip, I guess, on this front flange that it has to sit around. So to get it off, you might have to push it towards the back and up. And then I find it easiest to have that front drive shaft above it, and then you should be able to slide it forward off of the splines. The angle of the splines will make it hard to do. If it's pointing down, it'll put too much pressure on the back. So we'll set it up. So I just got it off the spline, and the whole thing comes out. These are the clamps that hold the boot onto the splines. You can see there's like a little metal tab that goes through one of these, kind of like a belt loop. So prying that up and then pushing it, I was able to pop that metal tab out, and that removes the clip. Now for these clips, I did buy new ones expecting me to mangle it, but if you are reusing them, maybe be a little bit more careful on your removal. Out with the old, in with the new. Now I did see a couple places on the internet saying the torque specs of it ranging from about 85 foot-pounds to about 110. So I'm going to go ahead and do the 110. It was, like I said, wasn't too difficult to get off, but we'll tighten them down and check them after a couple days of driving. So I have the new boot on the splines, and you can see here I have the clamps ready to go. I did give the splines a quick brush down with a wire brush just to make sure there was no crud in there. Don't know how useful this angle is, but the installation is just going to be, as they always say, the reversal of removal. So I'm going to set the drive shaft up above, I guess, the front flange, so I can get the right angle coming back at the splines. Wiggle that on the splines. It'll go all the way back into the boot that I already have set up with the clamps. Then we bring it down a little bit, get it onto the flange, try to line it up the best way. That looks like it's set up. Start threading through some of our bolts. With that, the last bolt's set. I'll get my torque wrench, and like I said, I'll put these to 110 foot-pounds, and we should be good to go. Okay, and I think with that, everything is repaired and put back together. Feel free to put any questions that you might have down in the comments, and I hope everybody can now enjoy having their four-wheel drive functional again in their Dodge Ram. Thanks for watching. Bye.